April 19th, 2023, a Wednesday night in Colorado. Three 18-year-old high school seniors are bored. They decide to go out and do something they think will be fun, something cool. They drive to a Walmart parking lot and fill their truck with landscaping rocks. Then they drive onto the highway, and for the next 2 hours, they turn those rocks into weapons. 7 cars are hit. 3 people are injured. And one young woman, 20-year-old Alexa Bartell, is killed instantly when a 9-pound rock crashes through her windshield. After they see her car leave the road, the 3 teens circle back. They slow down, and one of them takes a photo of her crashed vehicle as a memento. This is the story of Alexa Bartell and the 3 teenagers who destroyed her life because they were bored. Before we dive into this case, if you want to stay updated on stories that show how quickly stupidity turns into tragedy, how one night of bad decisions can destroy multiple lives forever, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because this case is a reminder that some people don't think about consequences until it's way too late. Drop a comment right now. Should bored teenagers who kill someone face life in prison? Because that's exactly what happened here. Content warning before we begin. This video discusses reckless endangerment, severe injury, and death caused by teenagers throwing rocks at moving vehicles. We'll be discussing the victims' injuries in detail and the callous behavior of the perpetrators. If you're sensitive to these topics, please consider whether you want to continue watching. Let's start with the victim, because Alexa Bartell was more than just a name in a police report. She was a 20-year-old woman with her whole life ahead of her. She had family who loved her, friends who cared about her. A future that was stolen in an instant by 3 teenagers who thought throwing rocks at cars was entertainment. Alexa lived in the Denver area in Colorado. April 19th, 2023 was a Wednesday, just a normal day. Alexa was doing what a lot of 20-year-olds do on a Wednesday night. She was driving, talking on the phone with a friend, having a normal conversation, making plans, living her life. She had no idea that in a few moments, her life would end, that 3 strangers she'd never met had decided to play a game, and she was about to become their final victim. But before we get to Alexa's death, we need to talk about the 6 other people who were attacked that same night. Because Alexa wasn't the first person these teenagers targeted, she was the last. And by the time they got to her, they'd already perfected their technique. They'd already injured people, they'd already caused crashes, and they were excited about it. The 3 teenagers involved in this case were Joseph Koenig, Nicholas Carroll Chick, who went by Mitch, and Zachary Kwok. All 3 were 18 years old. All 3 were high school seniors. By all accounts, these weren't kids from troubled backgrounds. They weren't gang members. They weren't involved in drugs or organized crime. They were just normal teenagers, which makes what they did even more disturbing, because it shows that anyone, regardless of their background, can make choices that destroy lives. Joseph Koenig was described by a friend as someone who liked destructive behavior and enjoyed causing chaos. That's a red flag. That's the kind of personality trait that should make people pay attention, because people who enjoy chaos, who get a thrill from destruction, are dangerous. They're the ones who escalate, who take things too far, and that's exactly what Koenig did. Nicholas Carroll Chick was apparently close friends with Koenig. He later described Koenig as being like a brother to him. That loyalty would matter later, when investigators tried to figure out who threw the rock that killed Alexa. Because Carroll Chick initially tried to protect Koenig, tried to blame someone else, but eventually the truth came out. Zachary Kwok was the newest member of the friend group. He was the one who would eventually break first, who would tell investigators what really happened. But on April 19th, he was fully involved. He was part of the plan. He participated. And according to court documents, he admitted that they all threw rocks that night. Now here's the thing about this case that makes it even more disturbing. This wasn't the first time Koenig and Carroll Chick had done this. According to Carroll Chick's own statements to police, he and Koenig had been throwing rocks and other objects at cars since at least February 2023, on at least 10 separate occasions. That means they'd been doing this for 2 months before Alexa was killed. 2 months of targeting innocent people. 2 months of causing damage, risking lives, getting away with it. And each time they got away with it, they probably felt more invincible, more confident, more willing to escalate. On the night of April 19th, 2023, the 3 teenagers got together to hang out. That's how Carroll Chick described it to police. Just hanging out. But their idea of hanging out was going to a Walmart parking lot and collecting landscaping rocks. These weren't small stones. These were large, heavy rocks used for landscaping. The kind of rock that weighs several pounds. The kind of rock that can cause serious damage. and they loaded these rocks into the cab of their truck. Then they drove onto the highways around Denver, and they started hunting for targets. The first victim that night was Zachary Smar. It was around 10 p.m. Smar was driving along 100th Avenue near Sims Street when something smashed into his vehicle. He testified later about what happened. "I was just driving, and then I remember seeing a collision and dust, and then the dust settling, and then there's a hole right here, right by my dashboard, like a rock-sized hole. A rock had crashed through his windshield, leaving a hole near his dashboard. Smar was lucky. The rock missed him, but it was close. Close enough that a few inches difference could have killed him." Think about that for a second. Smar was just driving, minding his own business, and suddenly a rock comes through his windshield. The terror of that moment, the confusion, the realization that someone just tried to hurt you and you have no idea why. Smar survived, but his night was ruined. His car was damaged, and he'd carry the trauma of that moment for the rest of his life. About 15 minutes later, around 10:15 p.m., the teenagers struck again. This time, the victim was Nathan Tipton. Tipton was working as an Uber driver that night. He was headed to Red Rocks Amphitheater to catch the late-night surge in ride-hailing fares, just trying to make some money, and then his windshield exploded. Tipton testified about what happened. "I heard a loud smash and swerved a little bit. I looked down and there was a rock in my lap and glass all over my face. Glass all over his face, a rock in his lap. Tipton could have been killed. If that rock had hit him directly, if it had struck his head or chest instead of landing in his lap, he'd be dead. And for what? So 3 bored teenagers could have fun?" Tipton managed to bring his vehicle to a stop. He called for help. Another driver who had also been hit pulled over behind him. That driver came up to him and said, "Dude, are you okay?" Because there were multiple victims that night. Multiple people targeted. Multiple lives put at risk. Around the same time, another driver, identified in court documents as Mueller, was also hit. Mueller described seeing an arm or figure rising from the truck moments before the rock was hurled toward him. He saw them. He saw someone in the truck throw something, and then his windshield shattered. Mueller managed to stop his car and call his father. And while he was on the phone, another victim pulled over to check on him. Because that's what decent people do. When they see someone in distress, they help. Unlike the 3 teenagers, who were causing the distress and enjoying it. Shortly after Mueller was hit, Brian Smith became another victim. Smith was driving home from Denver International Airport. He'd just flown in, probably tired, looking forward to getting home, and then he saw a vehicle coming toward him in the opposite direction. Smith testified, "As it was passing the minivan, I saw something come out of the back. At first, since it was kind of the tail end of winter, I thought it was maybe a sheet of ice or something coming off. But whatever it was struck the vehicle ahead of me and then came and hit me." Smith initially thought it was ice, a natural occurrence, something accidental. He had no idea that 3 teenagers were deliberately targeting cars, deliberately throwing rocks, deliberately trying to cause crashes. About 15 minutes later, around 10:30 p.m., Eleanor Davis, who goes by Lux, was driving south on Highway 93 near Highway 72. Davis was a student at the University of Colorado Boulder. She was driving alone on what she described as a night of inky darkness. She was enjoying the silence, the calm, and then she saw something in the air. Davis testified about what went through her mind. "My immediate thought was, is there a hawk out here? And then it was, no, it can't be a hawk. It's too late for a hawk. It has to be an owl. And then I realized it was a rock when it hit my windshield. A hawk. An owl." Davis's brain was trying to make sense of what she was seeing, trying to rationalize it. Because who expects a rock to come flying at them while they're driving? But it wasn't a bird. It was a rock. And when it hit her windshield, Davis felt immediate pain. She testified, "I felt pain all across the right side of my face and neck. Then I felt something wet running down, and when I brought my hand away, there was blood. Blood." Davis was bleeding from her face and neck. Glass had cut her. The impact had injured her. She could have been killed. She could have lost control of her car and crashed, but she survived. She managed to stop her vehicle. She managed to get help, but she'd carry those scars, physical and emotional, for the rest of her life. 6 victims, 6 cars hit, 3 people injured, and the teenagers weren't done yet. They had one more rock, one more target, and this time, their victim wouldn't survive. Around 10:45 p.m., Alexa Bartell was driving and talking on the phone with a friend. They were having a normal conversation, and then the conversation ended, abruptly. The friend on the other end of the line heard the line go dead. No scream, No crash sounds, just silence. The friend tried calling back. No answer. Something was wrong. What had happened was this. The 3 teenagers had spotted Alexa's car. They had one final rock, a 9-pound landscaping rock they'd taken from the Walmart parking lot. 9 pounds. That's heavy. That's not a pebble. That's a weapon. And one of them threw it. The rock crashed through Alexa's windshield. It struck her in the head. The impact was catastrophic. Zachary Kwok would later describe the sound as being like a railgun shooting a block of concrete. A railgun. An industrial weapon. That's how loud it was. That's how violent the impact was. Alexa died instantly. The rock fractured her skull. It caused massive head trauma. Blood poured from the wound, covering the inside of the driver's side door, pooling in her lap. Her car veered off the road and came to a stop in a field, and Alexa Bartell, 20 years old with her whole life ahead of her, was dead, killed by 3 teenagers who were bored. Now here's where this case goes from tragic to absolutely sickening. After they saw Alexa's car leave the road, the 3 teenagers didn't panic. They didn't call 911. They didn't try to help. They circled back, multiple times. They drove past the scene of the crash, slowing down to look. And then one of them, Zachary Kwok, took out his phone and photographed Alexa's car. When police later asked him why he took the photo, Kwok said he thought Joseph or Mitch would want it as a memento. A memento, a keepsake, a trophy. They just killed someone, and they wanted a photo to remember it by. After taking the photo, Koenig and Carol Chick talked about being blood brothers. They made a pact. They agreed to never speak of what happened, never tell anyone. They would keep this secret forever. And then they drove away, leaving Alexa to be found by someone else. Meanwhile, Alexa's friend, the one she'd been on the phone with, was worried. The call had cut off. Alexa wasn't answering. Something was wrong. Alexa's mother, Kelly Bartell, also knew something was wrong. Kelly would later testify that the last time she saw Alexa, they said, "I love you" to each other, as they always did. But something told Kelly to give Alexa an extra hug, an extra moment, as if some part of her knew it would be the last time. When Alexa didn't come home, Kelly used GPS to track her daughter's phone. She located Alexa's car in a field. Kelly drove to the scene. She called 911, and when she arrived and saw what had happened, she fell to the ground. Her daughter was dead. Her 20-year-old daughter, who had been alive and healthy just hours before, was gone, killed by strangers for no reason. The 3 teenagers, meanwhile, went to get food. They stopped at a fast food restaurant. They ate. They talked. They probably laughed about what they'd done. The next day, one of them was questioned at school but was released. They thought they'd gotten away with it. They thought they were invincible. But they'd made mistakes, and those mistakes would lead police right to them. Investigators immediately began working the case. They had multiple crime scenes, 7 vehicles hit across a wide area. They had witnesses who described seeing a truck, seeing something thrown, and they had cell phone tower data. That data showed which phones had been in the area at the time of the attacks. Combined with witness descriptions of the vehicle, investigators were able to identify the truck. And once they identified the truck, they identified its owner. And from there, they identified the 3 teenagers who'd been in it that night. On April 25th, 2023, 6 days after Alexa was killed, Joseph Koenig, Nicholas Carol Chick, and Zachary Kwok were arrested. All 3 were charged with first-degree murder with extreme indifference. That's a serious charge. It means murder committed with such reckless disregard for human life that it demonstrates extreme indifference to the value of life. It's not premeditated murder in the traditional sense. They didn't plan to kill Alexa specifically, but it's murder nonetheless. Because when you throw 9-pound rocks at moving cars on a highway, you know someone could die. You know you're risking lives. And if you do it anyway, that's murder. All 3 teenagers were held without bail. The community was outraged. Parents were horrified. Prosecutors said the teens' reckless and irresponsible actions had taken away an innocent life. And as investigators dug deeper, they learned just how calculated this had been. Carol Chick told investigators that he and Koenig had been throwing objects at cars since at least February, on at least 10 separate occasions. This wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This was a pattern, a hobby, something they did for fun. Carol Chick also told police that all 3 of them threw rocks that night, that they felt excited when the rocks hit cars. Excited, not guilty, not horrified, excited. They were getting a thrill from causing damage, from terrorizing people, from putting lives at risk. And with each successful hit, they probably felt more confident, more skilled, more willing to take bigger risks. The DNA evidence was limited. The only DNA found on the rock that killed Alexa was hers. None of the teenagers' DNA was on it. That meant the prosecution couldn't use DNA to prove who threw it. They'd have to rely on testimony, on the statements the teenagers made to police, and on the testimony of the other two teenagers, if they could get them to testify against the third. As the case moved through the legal system, cracks began to form in the teenagers' united front. Zachary Kwak was the newest to the group. He didn't have the same history with Koenig and Carol Chick. And as the reality of what they were facing set in, life in prison, Kwak started to consider his options. In May 2024, more than a year after Alexa's death, Kwak accepted a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to first-degree assault. In exchange, he would face 20 to 32 years in prison and would testify against Joseph Koenig. And in his testimony, Kwak would say that it was Koenig who threw the rock that killed Alexa Bartell. Shortly after Kwak's plea deal, Nicholas Korolchik also accepted a deal. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and other charges. His original 15 counts were dismissed as part of the agreement. And like Kwak, Carol Chick agreed to testify against Koenig. But Carol Chick's path to that testimony was more complicated. Initially, he'd tried to protect Koenig. He'd pointed the finger at Kwak. But as the evidence mounted, as the pressure increased, Carol Chick changed his story. He admitted that Koenig threw the fatal rock. And he admitted something else, that he had placed the rock next to Koenig so Koenig could grab it and throw it. Carol Chick had facilitated the murder. He'd enabled it. And now he was testifying about it to save himself. Joseph Koenig's trial began in April 2025, 2 years after Alexa's death. Koenig was now 20 years old, no longer a teenager, but he'd been 18 when he killed Alexa. And the question the jury had to answer was this: did Joseph Koenig throw the rock that killed Alexa Bartell? And even if he didn't, was he guilty of murder as a conspirator? The prosecution, led by Chief Deputy District Attorney Catherine Decker, argued that the damage to Alexa's car was consistent with Koenig, who was left-handed and was driving, throwing the rock shot put style out the driver's side window. That matched what Carol Chick testified to. It matched the physics of the impact. And it made sense given Koenig's position in the vehicle. But even if the jury didn't believe Koenig threw it, Decker argued, they should still find him guilty of first-degree murder as a conspirator. Because Koenig was part of the plan. He participated in throwing rocks at cars all night. He was there when Alexa was killed. He circled back to see what they'd done. He talked about being blood brothers and never speaking of it. That's conspiracy. That's complicity. That's murder. Koenig's defense attorneys tried a different approach. They acknowledged that Koenig was involved, but argued that one of the other two teenagers, either Kwak or Carol Chick, actually threw the fatal rock. They painted Kwak and Carol Chick as liars who had taken sweetheart plea deals to avoid life in prison and were now willing to say anything to save themselves. The defense also argued that Koenig had borderline personality disorder, which affected his impulse control and judgment. They asked jurors to find him guilty of manslaughter, the least serious charge he faced, rather than first-degree murder. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Witnesses testified about being hit by rocks that night, about the terror they felt, about the injuries they suffered. Eleanor Davis testified about seeing what she thought was a hawk or owl before realizing it was a rock, about feeling pain and blood running down her face. Nathan Tipton testified about having a rock in his lap and glass all over his face. Brian Smith testified about seeing something come out of the back of the truck. Each testimony painted a picture of a night of terror caused by 3 teenagers who thought it was fun. Kelly Bartell, Alexa's mother, testified about the last time she saw her daughter, about that extra hug, about using GPS to track Alexa's phone and finding her car in a field, about falling to the ground when she realized what had happened. Kelly's testimony was heartbreaking, and it reminded everyone in that courtroom what this case was really about: a young woman who died for no reason. Zachary Kwak took the stand and testified that he did not throw any rocks that night. He said he was in the truck but didn't participate in the actual throwing. This contradicted earlier statements where he'd admitted to throwing about 10 rocks. But now, with his plea deal secured, Kwak was minimizing his own role. He did, however, point the finger firmly at Koenig. He said Koenig threw the rock that killed Alexa. Nicholas Carol Chick also testified. He admitted that he initially tried to blame Kwak for Alexa's death, but had since changed his story. He now said it was Koenig who threw the fatal rock. Carol Chick testified that Koenig seemed excited after they saw Alexa's car go off the road. That at one point, Koenig made a whoop sound. It sounded like him celebrating, Carol Chick said. Celebrating. after killing someone. That's the kind of detail that stays with a jury. That's the kind of testimony that convicts. Carol Chick also admitted placing the rock next to Koenig so Koenig could grab it and throw it. That admission was significant. It showed premeditation. It showed intent. Carol Chick knew what Koenig was going to do with that rock, and he facilitated it. The defense tried to cast doubt on Kwok and Carol Chick's testimony. They pointed out the inconsistencies, the changed stories, the plea deals that gave both young men incentive to lie. But they also stressed that none of the three intended to kill anyone, that they were just being reckless, that they didn't think about the consequences, and they asked the jury to show mercy, to find Koenig guilty of manslaughter instead of murder. The jury deliberated, and on April 27, 2025, they reached a verdict. Joseph Koenig was found guilty, not of manslaughter, not of a reduced charge, guilty of first-degree murder, guilty of attempted murder for the other attacks, guilty on 19 charges in total. The jury had decided that Koenig's actions, whether he threw the rock himself or participated as a conspirator, constituted murder, and they decided that he deserved the harshest punishment available. Alexa Bartell's family and friends hugged and cried in the courtroom. Justice had been done. But Kelly Bartell, Alexa's mother, had mixed feelings. She expressed sympathy for Koenig and the other two young men. She recognized that they were all 18 when her daughter was killed, that their lives were now destroyed too, that multiple families were suffering, but she also knew that Alexa was gone, that no verdict would bring her back, that justice, while important, couldn't undo the harm. On May 9, 2025, Joseph Koenig was sentenced. The sentence was severe. Life in prison with no possibility of parole, plus an additional 60 years for the other charges. Koenig would spend the rest of his life behind bars. He'd entered prison at 20 years old. He'd never experience freedom again. He'd never have a career, a family, a normal life, all because of one night of stupid, reckless, cruel behavior. Nicholas Carol Chick and Zachary Kwok are still awaiting final sentencing as of this recording. Kwok faces 20 to 32 years. Carol Chick's sentence hasn't been determined yet, but he's looking at significant prison time. Both of them cooperated with prosecutors and testified against Koenig, which may reduce their sentences slightly, but they're still going to spend decades in prison. Decades they could have spent building lives, pursuing careers, raising families. Instead, they'll spend those years behind bars, paying for a night when they decided that bored teenagers throwing rocks at cars was a good idea. This case raises so many questions. Why did they do it? What were they thinking? How could three seemingly normal teenagers decide that terrorizing innocent people was entertainment? The answer, unfortunately, is that they didn't think. They didn't consider consequences. They didn't empathize with their victims. They saw other people as objects, as targets, as obstacles in a game. And that dehumanization is what allowed them to do what they did. Carol Chick told investigators that they felt excited when they hit cars. Excited. That's a rush, a thrill. They were getting something out of it, an adrenaline high, a sense of power, a feeling of doing something dangerous and getting away with it. And with each successful hit, that feeling probably got stronger. They probably started chasing that high, looking for bigger thrills, taking bigger risks, until finally, someone died. And even then, they circled back to take a photo, because they wanted to remember the moment they took a life. There's also the question of how they justified it to themselves. Did they think they wouldn't get caught? Did they think the rocks wouldn't actually hurt anyone? Did they tell themselves that it was just a prank, just something fun? Or did they simply not care? According to a friend, Koenig liked destructive behavior and enjoyed causing chaos. That suggests he got pleasure from destruction, that he wanted to see things broken, that he wanted to disrupt order and cause harm. That's not normal. That's not a healthy mindset. And it's exactly the kind of mindset that leads to tragedies like this. The fact that Koenig and Carol Chick had been doing this for 2 months before Alexa was killed is significant. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't a moment of poor judgment. This was a pattern, a habit, something they did regularly. And each time they got away with it, they probably felt more invincible, more confident, more willing to take risks. They'd been playing with fire for 2 months, and on April 19, 2023, they finally got burned. Except it wasn't them who paid the ultimate price. It was Alexa Bartell, and the 6 other people they attacked that night, and all the people they'd attacked in the previous 2 months. Those people all carry trauma. They all have scars, physical or emotional, from that night, and they have to live with that for the rest of their lives. What can we learn from this case? First, that boredom is not an excuse for cruelty. If you're bored, read a book, play a video game, go for a walk, call a friend. Do literally anything other than putting innocent people's lives at risk. Second, that consequences are real. Koenig, Carol Chick, and Kwok probably thought they were invincible. They probably thought they'd never get caught, but they did get caught, and now they're paying the price. Koenig will spend the rest of his life in prison. Kwok will spend decades there. Carol Chick will spend decades there. Their lives are over, and it's their own fault. Third, that actions have ripple effects. Alexa Bartell's death didn't just affect Alexa. It affected her mother, Kelly. It affected her family, her friends, everyone who knew her and loved her. It affected the 6 other people who were attacked that night. It affected the teenagers' own families, parents who now have to visit their sons in prison, who have to live with the knowledge of what their children did. It affected the community, the justice system, everyone touched by this case. One night of stupidity created waves of pain that will last for generations. And finally, that life is fragile. Alexa Bartell was just driving, doing something she'd done hundreds of times before, and in one instant, her life ended. She didn't do anything wrong. She wasn't taking risks. She wasn't making poor choices. She was just existing, and 3 strangers decided to take that away from her. It's a reminder that we're all vulnerable, that we can be hurt by people we've never met, by people who don't even see us as human, by people who are so disconnected from empathy that they can kill and then take a photo as a memento. Alexa Bartell was 20 years old when she died. She had dreams, plans, a future. All of that was stolen from her by 3 teenagers who were bored, and now those teenagers are paying the price. But no amount of prison time will bring Alexa back. No verdict will undo the harm. Justice has been served, but the tragedy remains. Rest in peace, Alexa Bartell. Your life mattered. Your death was senseless and wrong, and your memory deserves to be honored.
Welcome back. That verdict coming down now in the Joseph Koenig trial happening in Colorado, the rock-throwing murder trial where he is facing life without parole if he's convicted of first-degree murder. These jurors also have the option of a lesser of second-degree or what the defense asked for them to come back with, which is manslaughter. Let's go in.
Jury verdict count 1, charge of murder in the first degree pertaining to Alexa Bartell. The foreperson has signed Roman numeral 2 and marked the first box under it. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of murder in the first degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 2, charge of attempt to commit murder in the first degree regarding Max Mueller. Foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the first box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit murder in the first degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 3, charge of attempt to commit murder in the first degree regarding Charles Getz. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the first box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit murder in the first degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 4, charge of attempt to commit murder in the first degree regarding William Groves Smar. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of, and mark the first box, attempt to commit murder in the first degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 5, charge of attempt to commit murder in the first degree regarding Eleanor Davis. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the first box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit murder in the first degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 6, charge of attempt to commit murder in the first degree regarding Nathan Tipton. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the first box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit murder in the first degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 7, charge of attempt to commit murder in the first degree regarding Brian Smith. Signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the last box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of reckless endangerment, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 8. Charge of assault in the second degree regarding Max Mueller. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the second box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of assault in the third degree. Jury verdict count 9. Charge of assault in the second degree regarding William Groves Smar. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the second box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of assault in the third degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 10. Charge of assault in the second degree regarding Eleanor Davis. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the second box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of assault in the third degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 11. Charge of attempt to commit assault in the second degree regarding Charles Getz. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the second box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit assault in the third degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 12. Charge of attempt to commit assault in the second degree regarding Nathan Tipton. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the second box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit assault in the third degree, marking the second box and signed by the foreperson. That was attempt to commit assault in the third degree, second box, marked by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 13. Charge of attempt to commit assault in the second degree regarding Brian Smith. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the second box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit assault in the third degree, signed by the foreperson. Jury verdict count 14. Charge of attempt to commit murder in the first degree regarding Christopher Bryan. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the second box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit murder in the second degree. Jury verdict count 15. Charge of attempt to commit assault in the second degree regarding Christopher Bryan. The foreperson has signed under Roman numeral 2 and marked the second box. We, the jury, find the defendant, Joseph Edwin Koenig, guilty of attempt to commit assault in the third degree, signed by the foreperson.
Okay, Joseph Koenig found guilty of the top charge and pretty much all the other ones too. 19 he was facing, and the jury has come back guilty, 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 guilty. Alexa Bartell was the victim in that top charge. The first degree murder charges, he was guilty on all 19 of these charges, but this was the big one, and this young woman lost her life after Koenig and a couple of his buddies decided that throwing rocks at cars while they were moving was a good idea. They did this numerous times, and Alexa lost her life. 10
victims in total in this case. So the chaos you can imagine on this road for all of those people who were there driving, and for a rock to go through the windshield of Alexa Bartell, it's just unimaginable pain for her family. Before we do that, though, new developments we want to share with you out of Colorado, where convicted killer Joseph Koenig has now been sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus an additional 60 years.
Koenig was found guilty just last month of 19 charges, including first-degree murder for throwing the rock that killed 20-year-old Alexa Bartell while she was driving in 2023.
Ahead of the sentencing earlier today, the judge heard an emotional impact statement from Bartell's parents, who called Koenig, quote, a low-life piece of garbage who deserves the death penalty. Take a listen.
The sentence that this trash is getting is not near enough what it should be. Because if I had the opportunity to sentence him, he'd get the death penalty.
Losing my daughter didn't just break my heart, it broke me. It shattered my soul. Everything I see and live is different now. My desires, my dreams, my relationships, all are touched by this grief.
Now, the court also got to hear from Koenig himself when he apologized to Bartell's family, acknowledging that it's his fault that she's gone.
To the family and friends of Alexa Bartell, I'm so sorry. I know that nothing I say can bring Alexa back. Nothing I say can give you one more minute with her, and I know that it is my fault that she is gone. Every day since she died, it is the first thing I think of when I wake up, and the last thing that I think of when I go to sleep.
Again, life in prison for the rock-throwing murder trial defendant Joseph Koenig.
Your Honor, I've had over 2 years to think about what I wanted to say today, but I think what I wanted to say first today, it's what I've wanted to say ever since April 19th. And to the family and friends of Alexa Bartell, I'm so sorry. I know that nothing I say can bring Alexa back. Nothing I say can give you one more minute with her, and I know that it is my fault that she is gone. Every day since she died, it is the first thing I think of when I wake up, and the last thing that I think of when I go to sleep. I never knew Alexa, and I didn't get the chance to even meet her, but from what I have learned about her, she must have been a very special person, and I know that the world is a worse place without her in it. I have no excuse and I have no explanation for what Mitch, Sack, and I did that night, but I hope you believe me when I tell you that we didn't intend to hurt Alexa or hurt anybody else that night. I mean, looking back on it now, it seems obvious that someone was going to get hurt or killed. My attorneys, they told me not to make a statement today, but this is probably going to be the only time I can ever say this. I'm so sorry. I know that I deserve the punishment I will get today, and I hope so sincerely that it'll take at least some small bit of the pain away that I've caused. Thank you, Your Honor.
Who threw the rock that killed Alexa Bartell?
Joseph Koenig.
I'd like to talk to you about the crimes you and Joseph Koenig committed together. Did you two start throwing rocks at oncoming cars at least beginning in February of 2023?
Yes, that sounds accurate.
And was it just the two of you who would do this, you and Mr. Koenig?
Yes, at that time it was.
And did you and he, Mr. Koenig, do this even before you knew Zachary Kwok?
Yes, we did.
Generally describe on February 25th, 2023, how that went down, how that happened.
So it started like pretty much any other day. It was just me and Joe hanging out. And at this point, we had already gotten into, for lack of a better word, a habit of throwing these rocks. And up until that point, it was at parked vehicles. But on that day, we were driving, and I believe it was in my truck, and Joseph happened to be driving. And we were on a 2-lane road, and we had rocks in the car because we had been throwing them at parked vehicles. And on that road, we had an oncoming car coming right at us. And Joe lowered his windshield on the driver's side, and he threw one at the car that was coming towards us.
And I'd like to speak with you to start more generally of the incidents on February 25th, the one incident on April 1st that you're charged with and convicted of, and then the incidents on April 19th. So I'm just going to be focusing on those, okay?
Okay.
So on those 3 specific nights, describe how it would begin, the decision that you and Mr. Koenig would make to throw rocks or other items at oncoming cars. On those 3 nights, how would that decision be made?
So, as I said, we were already in this habit of doing it with parked vehicles. So, whenever it would get late at night, We would go to certain spots to pick up these rocks, and we would just drive around pretty much anywhere, and we would throw them at vehicles parked or in the cases of the ones that are charged moving.
You said you would go late at night to collect these rocks and then throw these rocks.
Yes.
Why late at night?
Because it would be harder to see.
Harder for you to see or harder for people to detect you?
Harder for people to detect us.
On these nights, were you usually driving or was Defendant Koenig usually driving?
It depends. We switched off driving.
Do you remember telling law enforcement that it was usually Defendant Koenig who was driving?
Yes, I do.
And that on April 1st, it was you that night who was driving?
Yes, it was.
And are you right-handed?
Yes, I am.
Is Defendant Koenig left-handed?
I'm unsure.
Was it easier for you in April of 2023 to throw rocks out of the passenger side window with your dominant hand?
Yes.
How would you throw rocks at oncoming vehicles?
So for oncoming vehicles, what I would do is I would lower my window on the passenger side, and then with my dominant hand, I would go up and over the roof of the truck.
How would Defendant Koenig throw rocks at oncoming vehicles when he was driving?
He would have the driver's side window rolled down, and he would, I guess, kind of shot put it with his left hand.
And would you do this at different times or at the same time?
At different times, but mostly sticking to late evening into night.
And that was a bad question. Would you throw these rocks simultaneously or would you take turns throwing them at different cars?
In some cases, we would throw them simultaneously. In others, we would take turns throwing them.
How would you know when to throw a rock at an oncoming car?
We would communicate to each other if there was a car that we saw that we wanted to hit.
And how would you communicate to each other if you saw a car that you wanted to hit?
Mostly we would either say left or right, or in some cases it would just be speed up, and we would know that at that point, that's when we were gonna throw the rocks.
And how were you able to see the oncoming cars at night?
Through their headlights.
Would you have your headlights on?
Yes, we did.
You mentioned you'd say left or right. Was that things like contact left, contact right?
Yes.
Let's talk about the night of February 25th that you started talking about earlier. Was Defendant Koenig driving that night?
Yes, he was.
And you mentioned he had a black Ford F-150?
Yes, dark in color.
And so where did you meet up that night of February 25th?
I believe we met up at Joe's house, and it depends on what truck we would take, but when we were using his, I would park on the street in front of his house, and we would use his truck.
And so did you use his truck that night?
I can't recall which truck we used.
Okay. And so you meet up, and then where did you go to collect rocks?
Typically, there were a couple of places that we frequently went. We would go out front of the Stanley Lake Library, I believe, on Sims, and in front by where they have the sign for the library, there's a lot of landscaping rocks there.
Really just such senseless activity by three 18-year-old boys. We're going to pause it there. Coming up on Court TV, the co-defendant does get choked up when describing what happened the night his friend allegedly threw a giant landscaping rock and killed Alexa Bartell. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Ashley Wilcott in for Michael Ayala. Back to Colorado and the rock-throwing murder trial for Joseph Koenig. The trial got underway while we were covering Lori Daybell's trial in Arizona. We're bringing it to you now. It is a compelling trial. Koenig is the third and final suspect who was arrested in connection with multiple rock-throwing incidents, including one that killed 20-year-old Alexa Bartell in April of 2023. We're going to go back into court together. We're picking it up now with testimony from the second co-defendant, known as Mitch. Carolchick is his last name. He's getting into the moment the final rock was thrown that killed Alexa Bartell.
Let's talk about the murder of Alexa Bartell. What road was defendant Koenig driving down?
We were going southbound on Indiana.
Can you describe that roadway?
So on that stretch of road, it's very hilly. There's up and down in the road.
Is it well lit?
No, it is not.
Where were you sitting?
I was on the passenger side.
In the front?
Yes.
Where was Zachary Kwok sitting?
He was in the back seat in the middle.
Do you remember saying on January 4th of 2024 that he was in the back passenger seat?
Yes, that seems accurate.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
What did you see as you were at the top of one of those hills?
So while we were at the top of one of those hills, we saw headlights that had just came past the top of another hill that was right in front of us.
Is that who you now know to have been Alexa Bartell driving that car?
Yes.
What did defendant Koenig do with the speed of the truck once he saw these headlights?
So once the headlights were seen, Joe sped up the truck.
What did he do with his driver's side window?
So he, while he was speeding up, he rolled down the window on the driver's side of the truck.
Was this while Alexa Bartell was driving towards you?
Yes.
How fast was he driving?
How fast was Joe driving? He was going close to 80 miles an hour.
Was his window the only window to be rolled down when approaching Alexa Bartell's oncoming car?
Yes.
What did you hear when he rolled his window down?
So at that point, we were going very fast. So the only thing that you could hear was the wind entering through the window.
Did he speed up before or after he rolled his window down?
It was while he was speeding up that he rolled his window down.
You said he was going about 80 miles an hour when he passed Miss Bartell?
Yes.
How do you know that?
It is because when we were driving past the car, I was tracking it as I was coming towards us. And I was following the way it moved. And when it was beside our vehicle and to the left of it, I was able to look over, and on the dashboard is a digital speedometer. So I saw that he was going 80.
Was Miss Bartell going at normal speeds for that road?
Yes.
Did you hand Joseph Koenig a rock as you had been handing him rocks throughout the night?
I had set it on the center console like I had been doing all night.
Did you put it on the center console for him once you saw Miss Bartell's headlights?
Yes.
Describe how you handed him the rock on that center console.
So I would reach between my legs on the floorboard where the rock was, and I would set it on top of the center console for him to grab.
On this occasion, describe how he grabbed that rock from the center console.
So he had his right hand on the steering wheel, and he reached across his body with his left hand to grab the rock off the center console.
What did he do with that rock once he grabbed it with his left hand?
At that point, his window had already been rolled down. So when the vehicle got close to us, he threw it out of his side of the vehicle.
Was anything said in the car before he passed Alexa Bartell's car?
He was told to speed up while he was driving.
He was told to speed up?
Yes.
Who told him to speed up?
Zach said to speed up.
And did he?
He did.
Was anything else said in the car about this rock?
We said that this was going to be the final one and that we were just going to go home after it.
So someone in the car said last one.
Yeah.
Objection, leading. Sustained.
Did someone in the car say last one?
It was said that this would be the last rock.
Who said that?
I can't remember who exactly said it.
Could it have been you?
It could have been, yes.
Describe what Defendant Koenig did with this rock as he crossed paths with Alexa Bartell.
So, like he had been doing all night, he, with his left hand, threw it out of the driver's side window into the path of the car that was oncoming.
Had you had enough time to identify Miss Bartell as a target?
No, we had just seen the car coming at us, and that was that.
What did you hear once he threw the rock at Alexa Bartell?
So, with how we were going, we couldn't hear anything other than the wind. It was when we had passed the car that Zach looked out the rear windshield and he said to us, I think they went down into the ditch.
What did Defendant Koenig do once Zach said he saw the car go into a ditch?
So he said, holy and then it was said that we have to go back and see that.
Clearly, you can tell his voice is trembling, quivering. Let us know what you think. Do you believe that he's upset by what happened? We're going to take a break. Coming up on Court TV, the co-defendant Nicholas Carolchick gets grilled on cross about what he didn't do on the night of the fatal incident. Stay here with us on your front row seat to justice.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, the accused United Healthcare CEO shooter now facing federal charges. We're unpacking the latest developments as our experts weigh in.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
The NWSL is on Ion. Barbara Banda and the Pride battle the Spirit.
Take it in the box!
Then Lola Bonta and the Current take on the Dash.
What a strike!
Coverage starts Saturday at 5 p.m.
Ion, it's on.
We are listening to testimony in the rock-throwing murder trial of Joseph Koenig. The jury is now hearing his defense attorney grill the other co-defendant about his participation.
Kind of voice that he does.
When have you heard him do this high-pitched little voice that he does before?
He did it often when we were hanging out.
In what contexts?
It could be just about anything.
After Zachary Kwok said he saw this car go off the road, did Joe do anything?
So it was at that point that we pulled over onto the side of the road and we did a U-turn. So now we were facing northbound. And it was while we were facing northbound that we pulled onto the shoulder of the road. And me and Zach took the remaining rocks that were in our car and we threw them out into the shoulder of the road right there where we were parked.
Why'd you do that?
Because we just wanted to get rid of everything.
Did you consider the rocks to be evidence?
I guess so, yes.
Once you and Mr. Kwok threw the remaining rocks you had out of the car on the shoulder of the road, where did Defendant Koenig drive to?
So it was at that point that we continued going northbound. And it was then that we saw the car pulled over on the side of the road. And it was down in this ditch. And it was at that point that we kept driving past it. And then we turned around again for a third time. So we were coming back down south on Indiana. And at that point, we were going slower. And through the back windshield, Zach took a photo of the car.
To clarify, you say when you passed Alexa Bartell's car, now going in the opposite direction from which you had been, you saw her pulled over on the side of the road. She wasn't on the side of the road, to be clear, right?
No.
Was she in the middle of a field?
Yes.
Had she gone down an embankment?
Yes.
Had she gone through a...
Leading. Sustained.
Can you describe where her car had traveled?
As we were passing, we could see that it was several yards off of the road and that it was that it had been in the middle of this embankment.
And then you mentioned that Mr. Kwok took a photo of her car in the field. Tell us about that.
So that was on our third time passing when we were heading back south on Indiana. And Joe slowed down the car so that Zach could take a photo of it.
And what did he do with that photo?
He sent it to a group text that we had on Snapchat.
And did you see that photo?
Yes.
What could you see in it?
I could see the taillights of a vehicle that was off the road.
Did he tell you why he took that photo?
No.
What did you do with that photo?
I deleted it.
When you passed Alexa Bartell's car off the road, how was Defendant Koenig acting?
It's hard to tell. He was excited.
What did that look like?
He kept turning from his seat in the driver's seat to look at me and to look at Zach in the back seat.
And what would he be doing when looking at you and Zach in the back seat?
He would just be smiling and he would just look at us with his big smile on his face.
And was this after seeing Alexa Bartell's car in the field?
Yes.
When he hit Alexa Bartell, did he make a noise?
I'm not sure I follow.
When either he hit or passed Alexa Bartell's car, did he ever make a whoop sound?
Yes.
Can you describe that whoop sound and when he made that whoop sound?
So it was when we were passing by for the second time that we were going northbound and saw the car on the side of the road that he did that.
Court TV is bringing you the rock-throwing murder trial for a 20-year-old. The defendant is Joseph Koenig in Colorado. Now, this trial began on Monday while we were bringing you the Lori Daybell trial. So today, we are bringing you key moments from this really compelling Colorado trial. Koenig is accused of first-degree murder for throwing a rock at a young driver's car that smashed her windshield and killed her. The prosecution claims that Koenig was one of 3 then 18-year-olds who threw rocks at cars in April of 2023. 2 of the teens took plea deals, and they are scheduled to testify against Koenig. Before we bring you more testimony, let's get you caught up on this case. 20-year-old Alexa Bartell was killed on April 19th of 2023 when she was hit by a rock that was thrown at her windshield. Joseph Koenig, Zachary Kwok, and Nicholas Karolchik were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Several other people were injured by rocks that they threw during joyrides.
Throwing large landscaping rocks primarily at oncoming drivers as they passed, creating enough force for those rocks to smash through windshields, to destroy the bodies of cars, to destroy the bodies of humans.
Kwok and Karolchik took plea deals and will be sentenced next month. They say it was Koenig who threw the fatal rock. Koenig pleaded not guilty.
The defendant reaches across his body, grabs this landscaping rock with his left dominant hand, and throws it outside the driver's side window as she passes like a shot put.
Koenig's defense attorney doesn't dispute that his client was involved, but he says Koenig did not throw the fatal rock and argues that his actions do not warrant a murder charge.
He didn't intend to hurt anyone. In Mr. Koenig's mind, he wasn't targeting drivers. They were throwing rocks at cars. The evidence will clearly show that Zach Kwok and not Joe Koenig threw the final rock of that night, the rock that killed Alexa Bartell.
Let's get you back into testimony now. We're picking it up with the final moments of the direct examination of Eleanor Davis. She's one whose car was hit by one of those rocks thrown on the highway.
Had you seen where this rock had come from?
Somewhere off the left side of my car.
Did you see any cars or trucks or vehicles coming in the opposite direction at that time?
I did not.
Is Highway 93 a dark road?
Yes, it is.
Are there many lights on that road?
No.
Were you in an area where it was dark out?
Yes.
And so once you pulled over and assessed the damage to yourself and your car, what did you do next?
I determined that I may still be in danger, that there was a rock in my car, and obviously that had to have come from somewhere. If whoever or whatever had put that rock in my car were to come back, I did not want to be where I was. So I decided I had a choice between going home to my parents, about 24 minutes, and turning back around and going home, which was about 14 minutes. And I decided that my parents would be more apt to provide me with support and medical attention. And so I decided to go home to my parents' place.
And while you were parked on the side of the road and making that decision, how long did that all take?
I don't know.
A couple of minutes?
Probably.
Were you
more than 10?
Did you call 911 at that point?
I was too terrified.
Did you call anybody at that point?
No.
Did you have your cell phone on you?
I did.
Okay.
So I had one hand on the wheel and one holding my neck.
In terms of you holding your neck, were you still in pain when you decided to continue driving to your parents' home?
Yes.
What was your pain level?
It's hard to remember the exact level of pain because reflecting on pain is a difficult and subjective experience. I would say that it was greater than I would have liked.
Do you remember telling Officer Whitesides that you were trying to force the pain down to a 4 out of 10?
Yes.
And it had been kind of a 6 out of 10?
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Did you ever call a friend, Charles Latau, if I'm saying that? And tell us when you called him.
I believe I called him I want to say around 11:30. The exact time is not salient to me.
Was that after you'd arrived at your parents'?
Yes, it was after I arrived at my parents' place.
And did you tell your friend what had happened to you that night?
Yes, I did.
So you mentioned that from where you parked, braked on the side of the road, it was about, did you say 24 or 26 minutes to get to your parents' home?
24.
And did it take you about that long to get to your parents' home in Littleton?
Probably took a little bit longer because I was driving cautiously, given that I had a hole in my front windshield and my back windshield was entirely blown out.
Once you got home, what did you do?
I thought it would be funny if I startled my parents. And so I acted like everything was normal. I walked in, I greeted my stepfather. I walked into the kitchen and I said, "Hey, Mom, it's good to see you." And she, of course, didn't pick up that anything was wrong. And so she, with her back to me, says, "Oh, hey, honey, it's good to see you too." And that's kind of when the tension of the moment snapped. And I asked her to look at me. And I still hadn't seen the full extent of the damage to my face because my mirror had been blown out. So when she turns around and I see the look of horror that eclipses her expression, I realize how bad I must look.
And so you had injuries that were visible to her at that time?
Yes. Lacerations across my face and neck.
To be clear, was there glass still on your body?
There was, yes.
Where was it?
It was in various nooks and crannies. As I said, some of it got in my mouth. I was pulling glass out of my eyes and ears for at least 24 hours. And it was the thing about windshields when they break is that they kind of powder. And so there was this kind of powdery glass filament in a lot of the creases of my clothes.
So did you get in the shower with your clothes on?
I did, yes.
Is Exhibit 60 a fair and accurate representation of how you looked when you got home that night of April 19th, 2023?
When I got home in the moment, I looked much less cheerful.
Describe that. Why do you look cheerful in this photo?
I look cheerful in this photo because when somebody's gone through enough horrific experiences, as I have, you learn that there's not much else you can do but react to it in a way that makes you feel stronger.
And did this smile that you have in this photo make you feel stronger?
Yes.
Relevance and leading.
Permit the leading as to that question overruled. You may raise further objections as we go.
Your answer was yes?
Yes.
Did you do a closer assessment of your car and its damage than you were able to do while you were off on the side of the road once you got to your parents' home?
Of course, but not until I attended to my wounds.
Right. And after you had tended to your wounds, and I assume changed your clothes, is that when you looked at the damage to your car? What damage did the rock cause to your car?
Well, there was an entry. There's an entry mark through the front windshield. There is a deep indentation in my back seat, approximately 3 inches deep, 5 inches across, where the rock made impact with my back seat. And my back windshield is entirely blown out.
If you'd please look at,
furthermore, the rear view mirror is gone.
Morning, Ms. Davis.
Good morning.
Just want to ask you a couple clarifying questions about your testimony that you just gave.
Of course.
Pertaining to Life 360, does that also track your speed?
It does, I believe.
Do you know what your speed was from that night?
I do not.
Okay. The other question I want to ask you about is at the beginning of your testimony, you talked about just before your car was hit, you thought you saw a bird or a hawk or something. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes.
And then it was about a second or two when your car was actually hit by the object?
Yes.
When you saw what you thought was a bird, where was it in your field of vision? You recall? Up?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
If I were to be looking straight at the road, this would be where I saw the object.
Okay. And can you recall the trajectory of the object? Was it moving straight? Was it coming down? Do you recall?
It moved in an arc.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Let's welcome our guest for this hour, defense attorney, former head prosecutor Bob Bianchi. Bob, great to have you on. So glad you're on with me. And let me ask you two things that stood out to me. The first is I always think you take your witness as you find them. She was a creative writing major, very descriptive, inky darkness, powdery glass filaments. As she's talking, I think you really honestly couldn't have asked for a more descriptive witness.
Yeah, she's extremely descriptive. I was wondering, actually, it's funny, her testimony is odd. Like, I was wondering whether she was really prepped for trial because she wasn't giving the prosecutor exactly what it was that the prosecutor wanted. Nevertheless, she is painting a great picture with her words. She's very credible. She's answering questions directly and honestly. She's knowledgeable. She's providing a really good detailed description of the fright that she was going through and the trauma that she was going through, which is going to have a big emotional impact with the jury. So she's an excellent witness. And you know, you dance with the one you brought, Judge, I always say, when you're dealing with your witnesses. And I'd like a little bit less of the pithiness, but she's a pretty good witness overall. I mean, I think the jury understands she's agitated, upset, and you know, listen, our witnesses sometimes are a little quirky too.
Quirky, but that's what I was going to say is I have a little bit of a fear that the jury may not receive her testimony well, because I reacted not necessarily in a positive way, thinking, boy, is this scripted? Nobody talks like that. She might, to your point. But the other piece of this is quickly just the cross-examination. I thought it was interesting that the defense attorney brought up a bird in her vision and then focused on the arc of the rock. How might that help a defense say this was not murder, but rather a lesser charge? He didn't intend to kill anyone.
Yeah, I think the prosecution's got a really hard time here. I think they overcharge this case. No disrespect to the people involved. A premeditated and deliberate desire to kill is always hard for prosecutors to prove in cases like this. Defense is clearly going to go for the lesser included offenses.
Absolutely agree with you. Excuse my coughing, Bob. You're going to stay with us. So glad you're going to be with us. And we're going to have more of the surviving victim's testimony in the rock-throwing murder trial for Joseph Koenig out of Colorado. Stay tuned.
Lori Daybell.
Already convicted for the murders of her children.
Doomsday cult mom is now lawyer Lori.
She's representing herself.
On charges of conspiring to murder her fourth husband.
She said, I can murder you now.
She really thinks she's equipped to try this case.
She appears very sure of herself.
I have real trial experience.
It's going to be a strange trial. We'll see how it plays out.
The Cult Mom Conspiracy Trial. Live coverage continues Monday morning on Court TV.
Welcome back. We are bringing you the murder trial for a defendant, Joseph Koenig, out of Colorado. The prosecution claims that 10 drivers were struck by landscaping rocks and that one of those rocks caused the death of Alexa Bartell. A big part of this trial will be proving who threw the rock that killed the victim. There were 3 co-defendants. The defense claims Koenig isn't the one who did it and blames one of those co-defendants, Zachary Kwok. He took a plea deal, and so did the other co-defendant, Nicholas Karolchik. Both will testify against Koenig. Let's get you back to court now for more testimony. On the stand is another driver, Brian Smith, whose car was hit by one of those rocks.
Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Brian Smith.
Common spelling?
Common spelling, yes.
What do you do for work, Mr. Smith?
I'm a program manager at Google.
Okay. And where do you live?
Netherlands.
And what kind of car do you drive?
I was driving at the time a Subaru Forester.
And when you say you were driving at the time, you obviously know why you're here?
Yes.
We're going to talk about what happened to you on April 19th of 2023. So you're driving a different vehicle now than you were driving on that date?
We still have that vehicle, but that's my wife's, and I have mine.
Okay. On April 19th, 2023, what was the make and model and color of the car you were driving that night?
It was a black Subaru Forester.
And the year being a 2021?
Correct.
And if I could just have you turn over the reports in front of you.
Just turn them.
Oh, yes.
Where were you driving that night around 10:30? Where were you going from and where were you going to?
I was on my way back from Denver International, and I was going back to my house.
The airport?
Yes, the airport.
Were you driving behind anyone?
I was.
What kind of car were you driving behind?
Minivan.
How far behind the minivan were you?
2 to 3 vehicle lengths, the kind of a standard distance for that speed.
Was anyone coming northbound, rather driving northbound, while you and the minivan were driving southbound?
Yes.
And what happened when you and the minivan were driving southbound and someone else was coming northbound?
So the vehicle coming northbound, something came out. I wasn't sure if it was a pickup truck or a flatbed truck, but something came off the back of the truck, struck the minivan in front of me, and then came off the minivan's vehicle and hit my vehicle.
And so describe what you could see, given that it was nighttime. How were you able to make out that this was either a flatbed truck or a pickup truck?
I mean, generally, I'm pretty observative. And when something came off the back, it made it very clear. I wasn't sure if it was ice or something. And then in my side view mirror, I looked back and was able to see that it was a truck of some sort and not a closed top vehicle.
And so did you say that you saw it was a truck after it had passed?
Correct, yes.
And so not before it had passed you, is that fair?
Yes.
And did you see anyone in the truck?
No, it was dark and they had their lights on, so I couldn't see into the vehicle.
And describe what you saw in terms of this truck first passing the minivan in front of you.
So like I said, as it was passing the minivan, I saw something come out of the back. At first, since it was kind of the tail end of winter, I thought it was maybe a sheet of ice or something coming off. But whatever it was struck the vehicle ahead of me and then came and hit me. So all I saw was 2 headlights from the vehicle. So I knew there was a car coming at me, and that was basically it.
So just to be clear, you say all you saw was 2 headlights. Can you be sure where in that flatbed or pickup truck this item came from?
No, I cannot.
And you didn't see anyone in that truck throw anything?
No, I did not.
Was there damage to your car?
Yes.
What was that damage?
Our windshield cracked in multiple spots and our sunroof cracked as well.
Did you take photos of that?
I did not, no.
Did you go get that fixed?
Yes.
You mentioned that you pulled over behind the driver of the minivan. Did you discuss what had just happened to him and to you?
Yes, we did.
And what was that discussion?
So at the time, I mean, I think we were both in shock. We didn't know exactly what happened. We didn't discuss like what we saw. It was mostly I made sure he was okay. I asked if something came out of his vehicle, which did not. And then once I made sure he was okay, he had said he would call the police. And since my wife and I were okay and our vehicle was drivable, we left.
What was the damage that you saw on the side of the road to this minivan?
Just all of the passenger or all of the driver's side windows looked like they were completely blown out. They weren't there. There's glass in the vehicle and outside of the vehicle.
Did you see glass on the road consistent with the glass that had been broken out of this minivan?
Yes.
And so you mentioned you and your wife went home before police arrived?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Cross-examination?
No questions.
Mr. Tipton, where do you live?
I currently live in Mississippi now, Gulfport, Mississippi, but I wasn't living in Lakewood for a long time, for most of my life.
For most of your life?
Yes,
Did you just fly in from Mississippi today?
I did.
And were you living in the area on April 14th, this area, on April 19th, 2023?
Yes,
Where were you living?
in Lakewood.
What was your job at that time?
I was and still am a Lyft and Uber operator.
And so describe what that is.
I drive people from A to B and make money while I'm doing it.
What kind of vehicle were you driving on April 19th of 2023?
I was driving a 2014 Chrysler Town & Country.
Is that a minivan?
It is.
What color was it?
Gray, dark gray.
Were you driving that night for Uber and or Lyft?
I was.
And did you have passengers throughout that night?
Not at that time. I had just dropped off some riders in Boulder, and I was headed back to Red Rocks to take advantage of the surge rates there. And so I was deadheading to Red Rocks at that time. And
so you said not at that time. Let me ask you some follow-up questions there. And if you could get closer to the microphone.
Sure.
That would be great. Thanks. So I think you understand why you're here for a certain time. So were you driving from Boulder to Red Rocks when and just wait till I finish asking the question, just because we have a court reporter here who has to write down everything we say. So what was your route from Boulder, where you had just dropped off some passengers, to go to Red Rocks?
Highway 93 southbound.
So what happened on April 19th, 2023 at about 10:15 p.m.?
As I was driving to Red Rocks from Boulder, I was, doing my normal thing, and then I heard a loud smash, and I swerved a little bit and didn't understand what happened, and then cold air was all over, and I looked over my left shoulder, and I'm missing two windows on the back side of my van. So I pulled over right away, and in a spot that I could, and that's when another couple pulled up beside me and asked me if I was okay. And I said, yeah, I'm fine. I don't know what happened. Something hit my car.
And were you in the area of 120th and Highway 93 when this something hit your car?
Yes.
How fast were you driving when something hit your ar?
Roughly 60 miles an hour, right around the speed limit.
And you said when you were driving 60 miles an hour, you were just doing your normal thing. What's that?
Just driving, paying attention to the road, and just doing what any operator does when you're driving down the road.
And you said earlier you were deadheading to Red Rocks. Just explain what that means.
That's in relevance overall.
That means I'm trying to acquire a fare, and in doing so, I saw a larger opportunity at Red Rocks than in Boulder. So at that point, I decided not to take a fare. So deadheading means I'm not picking up any riders at that moment, so I can get to where the money is going to be more plentiful. And so that's what the deadhead means. It means I was not picking up any riders on my way to that next destination.
So were you alone in your minivan at the time?
Yes.
When you did pick up riders, where did they sit in your minivan?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Riders would sit. I have it with the minivan. I have two rows in the back, and then I also have a front passenger seat on the right side. So typically it will sit in the two captain chairs in the middle of the van. So if I had picked up two people, then there would be one behind me, the driver, and the one behind the front passenger seat. That's typically where people sit on a regular.
You mentioned that you were going 60 miles an hour and paying attention to the road. When something smashed into your windows behind you, did you see any oncoming vehicles?
Yes, there was three vehicles that had passed me at that time. And my first reaction, once I saw my windows were blown out, that was to turn around and go chase down the vehicles, but I did not. Instead, I went home and talked to my wife, and that's when we called Jefferson County Sheriff.
And can you describe the sound that you heard at that time?
A very large crash. More of it was a multitude of like a pop and a crash at the same time. It was very startling.
Did you know what had happened when you heard it?
No.
Did you see anything approaching those windows or you?
No.
Right before the impact, you didn't see anything?
No. It was a very sudden impact, and it was very startling.
And did you, at that time, have the wherewithal to then pull over?
Yes.
And how soon after you heard this impact were you able to pull over?
Probably within the next 30 seconds. As soon as I had a clearing where I was, there was a guardrail. So there was no room on the shoulder to pull over. So I went to the end of the guardrail, and that's when I pulled over.
And did the couple behind you pull into that?
They pulled up next to me and asked me if I was okay. There was no traffic on the road when they pulled up and asked me if I was okay. And then they said, well, something hit our car too. And I was like, well, I don't know what that was. And I said, and then they asked me if I needed their assistance. And I said, no. I said, I'll figure it out. And then they took off.
And what did you do to figure it out? What did you do from there?
Well, I got out of my car and I had looked at the damage that was done and kind of freaked out a little bit on what am I going to do. I said, well, that's the end of my night. I can't go work. I can't have people in a car like that.
Was there glass covering seats at that point?
Oh, everywhere. Over the whole back of the car.
Cross-examination?
No questions.
I dialed her number and she didn't answer. And then I checked her location and it was Indiana. But then I zoomed in and it wasn't on the road. Oh, sorry. It was off the road. It's like in the field. And I didn't understand what it could be. And she called back, or I called her back, I'm not sure. And I said, she's not answering me either. And she said, I'm almost there. And I don't remember what else we talked about, what could have happened. And she got there and she said, I'm at the spot on Indiana. And she's not here. She's not here, Kelly. I don't know where she is. And I said, look in the field, because it shows she's in the field. And she goes, oh my God. She's in the field. I see her car. And I said, please call 911. I'm on my way. I will be right there. I'll go to her. Go to her, please. I'm on my way.
You told Jenna to go to Alexa's car in the field. Had you also called 911?
I did. I don't remember. I put sweats on or something, and as I was running out the door, I called my sister and said, I don't know what's happening, but Alexa's car is in the field and she's not answering her phone. And so I went out the door and she said, I'm on my way. And when I got in my car, I called 911 and said what had happened and that I was going there. And I don't know, but I think we need emergency vehicles there and for them to get it, but they wouldn't send them because I wasn't there and I couldn't confirm what was happening or what had happened.
And so once you get dressed a little bit after 11 o'clock at night, do you go there?
Yeah.
How long do you think it took from your home to get there?
I think it's 5-10 minutes, if that. I don't think it's that far.
And what did you see when you arrived near this area where
I could see the lights. Before I even got there, I could see all the lights. So I knew that. And I realized it was going to be something bad because there was a lot of lights.
And when you say lights, are you talking about emergency?
Yeah, sorry, the ambulance, I think fire trucks and
police.
There was a lot of vehicles there.
And so amongst all these vehicles, fire trucks, ambulance, police, what did you do once you got towards those vehicles?
I saw Jenna's car in the field as well, and I saw her car, and so I pulled off the road down to the fence, and then I just instantly ran to the ambulance. because I thought she would be in there. So I ran through the fence to where the ambulance was, and she wasn't there, and nobody was saying anything. So I was just looking around and I saw her car, so I ran to her car. But there was a policeman or firefighter, I'm not sure, standing there. He said, you can't go see her. And I just remember standing there. I feel like it was forever. I don't know how long I stood there trying to figure out what was happening. And then I think it just all clicked. I don't know. Just screamed and fell to the ground and just realized something bad had happened.
Did responders tell you that Alexa was dead?
I honestly don't know if they did or didn't. I think I figured it out, but I don't remember. I think my sister and brother-in-law arrived and I don't remember. I think I said, I think she's gone. And my sister was down on the ground with me. We were screaming. And then my brother-in-law went and talked to the cops, and I think they told him.
Were you able to verify that it was, in fact, Alexa who was killed?
He came back and told us.
And you mentioned you weren't allowed to go see your daughter, correct?
Correct.
Did you hold a memorial service for her in the coming weeks?
Yeah.
Relevance.
Establishing identity of the decedent.
Okay.
Add Rule 403.
Overruled for now.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. No further questions.
Cross-examination.
We don't have any questions. Thank you.